Howdy, I'm Davey Griffin. I'm a professor and extension meat specialist in the Department of Animal Science here on campus. And we're going to talk a little bit today about grilling. It's the 4th of July and it's kind of time to get that grill out and be sure you've got it prepped and ready to go. And then visit a little bit about temperatures and maybe a few tips to hopefully help that grilling experience be the best it can be.
My name's Dusty Tittle. I'm a county extension agent here in Brazos County for Ag and Natural Resources. And my part on today's program is talking about getting your fire started safely, getting the grate cleaned correctly and safely. And then we'll send it over to Davey and he's going to talk about cooking the meat and all the safety aspects from that. So when we talk about grilling outside, you can use charcoal briquettes, and this is just a bag that we've picked up that we're kind of using that I'll use. And this one says lights instantly, the match light or something. There's a number of different brands. It works really great. So as we talk about starting our fires, a great option is this little contraption called a chimney, in which you put your briquettes in the bottom, and on your grill inside here, you set it down, but you put the fire underneath it, and that way you get it cooked evenly. So this is a great option. What we don't want to do, that everyone does, is we build a pyramid down in our pit. We don't want to build a pyramid. So if you'll come in here a little bit closer and look down in there, the best thing to do is just make a grid pattern. So you can see that one's kind of a, what is that, 5 by 4, just a grid pattern. So how wide is it? It needs to be big enough where there's sufficient heat space for all of that you're going to cook. Okay, so lots of meat, bigger pattern. All right, so you can start the 4 corners, and by doing this, more of the your charcoals will be ready at the same time instead of just some. So once you get it going, best thing to do is just put your grill back on it, let it heat up, get to that right temperature, then you can take this off. And what you don't want to do, that everyone still does, these metal scrapers. There's 2 different examples. We don't want to use these because these can break off and still be stuck on there. So that's not what we want to do. So when the grate is hot, okay, so get tongs. You may choose to use a glove with it because it might get hot, but you're going to get a foil ball and firmly, you're going to scrape back and forth on the hot grate. So you're going to scrape all the big chunks off with a foil ball. Works really, really well. So once you get all the big stuff off, then you can use an onion. Just put the tongs through it and be careful. Once again, you might want to use a glove, and then you can rub this across all of it while it's hot, and it gets all the fine particles that sticks to that onion when you're doing it from there. So those 2 steps, the foil ball and the onion, work really good at cleaning it off. So the next thing when we're going is many times you want to put something on there to prevent it from sticking, and just a general vegetable oil that you spray on. But here's what we don't want to do. We don't want to just spray right down on the heat source because it will burn. It'll flame up. So again, take your tongs, reach in from the side, pick it up, and off on the side, then we spray, okay? So we get it covered the area that we need, and then we can put it right back down on the grate. We can cover it back up if we need to, get the temperature that we're looking for. And the temperature we're looking for is the 4 by 4. Essentially, it comes down to, if you can hold your hand 4 inches above the heat source for 4 seconds, you're about 400 degrees. So you're ready to cook at that point. If you can only hold it for 1 second, it's too hot. If it takes 8 seconds, well, you're not warm enough yet. So the 4 by 4 is a good way to do it. So 4 inches, 400 degrees is kind of what you're looking at for 4 seconds. Davey?
All right, Dusty, thank you. And that was great information and a great way to get started. Now, once you got your fire going, there's a few things that we need to talk about in terms of the protein themselves and cooking on the grill. And a lot of that has to do with being sure that you understand what meat source you're using. Are you using steaks, or are they ground beef, or is it poultry or chicken or sausage or any of those normal products that we see used a lot for most of the grilling exercises and 4th of July parties and all those kind of things. So we tried to do a few of those today to help you with that. There's actually 4 C's that we talk about a whole lot. Keep it clean, don't cross-contaminate, cook correctly, and then chill when you get through in terms of your leftovers and those kind of things in a timely manner that will allow those to not have food safety issues later on. So food safety is a big part of this. We're outside a lot and sometimes we forget that. But being sure that we do that with those proteins and knowing what those are will make a huge difference in how your party goes and how it goes afterwards as people go home. So if we think about solid muscle cuts like steaks, those we want to be sure that we understand those can be cooked to a little lower degree of temperature sometimes because the surface is where we might have concerns about bacteria. When we get on products that are ground, sausage, ground beef, those kind of things, those bacteria, because of the way we grind that product, are all the way through. So we've got to take those up to a little higher temperature to be sure that we've got those safe and they'll be wholesome and for everybody to eat. When we go on and we put products on the grill, you're going to probably bring them out there on a plate. One of the problems that people have sometimes is they forget that that plate has now been contaminated because we know bacteria live on fresh meat products and those kind of things. So if you take that same plate and put cooked meat back on top of that, we've cross-contaminated. So we want to be sure that you don't do that. Bring it out on a plate, the raw material out on a plate, put it on the grill, go clean that plate, or better yet, have one that's completely different that the cooked meat's going to go on to. Then as you start to put these on, and we do have all of those proteins that I mentioned on the grill right now, one of the things that you need to be concerned about when you're doing this is you can or you want to maybe do direct heat and indirect heat. So at this point in time, I've got most of my charcoal all along one side. So if I want to do something really fast, really hot, I'm going to have that right over these charcoal, but I may put them over there to start to get some color on the outside and then move them over where they're not directly under or over the heat to let those continue to cook. The ground products, we've always got to be sure they're a little higher, so I'm going to keep those a little closer to the fire itself. The steaks, for sure, the beef steaks, we don't have to do that as much. We do on the poultry as well. Now, how do you know when these are done? And that's a problem that a lot of people have because they say, gosh, I just do them until I think they're done or they're hard or whatever. Most people don't undercook, most overcook. And when they do, they don't have near the eating experience that they could have otherwise. So the best thing to do from food safety and from food quality is have a good thermometer. And you can have one like this, and this one's a little fancier that has a digital readout, and this is a thermometer that does read to a really tight degree of doneness or to the exact temperature. But there are others out there, and I'll talk about those just a little bit as we go through. One of those that is more common a lot of times is this dial thermometer. And they're very common and they're very cheap, and sometimes they're giveaways and those kind of things. One of the things I caution you about is being sure that this is a calibrated thermometer, regardless of what it is. Be sure it's calibrated. How do you calibrate? Fill a glass with water or with ice, just as close to the top as you can get and as closely packed as you can. Fill the rest of it with water, stir that thermometer in there, and if it doesn't read 32 degrees, go online, find, we've got some resources on our website to be able to show you how to calibrate that thermometer and be sure that it's calibrated. With these, they have a little dimple on the side, and if you are taking a temperature with one of these, be sure that dimple gets into the meat because these don't read at the tip, they read along the side. These, on the other hand, these digital thermometers are all going to read from the tip of the thermometer. And so when I do those, On a thick steak like this, I don't have to worry too much. I can actually go in from the top and read that. And it needs, the recommendations are 145. Actually, with these, you can go a little bit lower than that because for a medium rare degree of doneness, you'd stop at about 135. I'm going to take this off because it's right there. And I'm going to let this steak rest, which just means letting it sit there for a while. I would not cut that steak for about 4 or 5 minutes to give it time to rest, give those juices time to equilibrate, and those kind of things. When we talk about ground meat products and even the poultry that we got on here, these breasts, I want to be sure that I go in from the side. And again, I'm trying to get right in the center of that ground beef patty. And I want to get those up to 160 degrees to be sure that we've killed any of those bacteria that can cause foodborne illness. So I'm going to do that on those and be sure I come in from the side and not straight in from the top. Why don't I do that? Because pretty quick, I'm right through all the way to the other side and I'm not getting an accurate reading. So be sure that you come in from the side on those. These chicken breasts, I actually took, and they were normally thicker than this. I actually kind of pounded these down to make sure that they were flat and about all the same thickness. Then I can come in from the side, and these need to be about 165. Now they've come down a little bit. They were at 165, and I've let them sit over on the side resting so we can cut those as well and rest those. The ground beef patties, be sure that you do this with a thermometer. Just cutting into one and seeing if it's pink or not is really not the solution. People have talked about that cutting or a ground beef patty being cooking till the juices run clear is really not scientifically safe. So you want to be sure that you use a thermometer so that you get to that 165 degrees to be sure that they are safe and wholesome for everybody, including those kids and older adults and all those people as we go through. So I'll get those off. I haven't really talked much about the sausage that we have on here, but again, the sausage is a ground beef product or a ground product. Now, it is a little different in that it has been cooked and fully cooked, but because it's just like our leftovers, and we always recommend leftovers be cooked to 165 degrees. So we want to be sure that we go back up to 165 on that, and we're there on this, so it's done as well. Now, once they're cooked, I can put those kind of in here on the platter together. When I brought those out raw, I brought out the different species. So the beef was with beef, pork was with pork, the sausage was by itself as well. But once they're out here and we've got them cooked, we're more assured that that's going to be a good eating experience. So we're going to go through that. And then once we get those done like that, then we're ready after they've rested to be able to serve. And you can either serve whole pieces or we can have steaks. This one's about medium done, and that's a good degree of doneness, somewhere around 145 to just be in the middle for most people. If they want them rarer than that, you can do that with solid muscle cuts, but not with the ground beef. Okay, we don't. I can check these. We may still have a little pinkness in there. We do on that, but I am safe with those and feel comfortable with that because I know I had a calibrated thermometer and checked those at 165 degrees. So even with a little pinkish from the fire, you'll still be safe there as well. So hopefully that helps a little bit on how to start a fire, then how to cook some of these products, both directly and indirectly, being sure that you get to those safe temperatures. I didn't mention, one of the first things I did before I started this, I washed my hands. Wash your hands thoroughly as you start. Wash them after you've handled any of those raw products. I've got gloves on today. Gloves don't make your hands impermeable, so they're still not safe. So be sure that the gloves help, but they're not the end all be all. And so don't put on a pair of gloves and handle raw and then cooked and those kind of things as well. And Dusty, once we've got all this done, the fire's starting to go out. What do we do with that?
Well, we're fortunate. We're allowing to do this demonstration here in the gardens. They don't let everyone cook here. No one gets to cook here, actually. So we're fortunate. So whether you're at the local park or you're at the lake or wherever you're at, you can't just leave your charcoals. You don't want to just put the lid on it, throw it in the truck and go, or hook on to the maybe the bumper pull cooker and go down the road. So what is really handy to bring is one of these nice metal buckets. This is plenty big. The lid's tight. And what's good about that, it keeps the air out of it so your fire will go out. But the main point is you can put sand in the bottom of this, and then you can dump your coals directly into this metal bucket on those coals. You can pour water on top of it if that's what you want to do, and then just put your lid back on top and raise and lock that dude on, and it's not coming off. So now you've got all your hot coals in one spot. It's pretty much safe and ready to go. And ideally, you put enough water on it to extinguish all the flames from that. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the beginning, and Davey didn't mention while he's cooking and all this, when we're out cooking, we're outside having fun. There's kids running around. They're going to have balls and this and that. You got to be mindful. They're kids. They're just having fun. Pay attention that we're not letting kids get close to our fire. They got to learn to stay away from it. We still have to keep an eye on them. If they want to throw a football or frisbee or what, there's plenty of room somewhere else. Run them off. All right. Don't let them get burned on the grills and everything.
Good deal. I didn't mention once you're through with your dinner, if you've got leftovers, you've got about 2 hours. Okay. If you're out here in the sun, probably less, but especially on any food safety or to be food safe, we want to be sure that any of the leftovers are back in a cooler. They can be on ice. They don't have to be in a refrigerator, but somewhere where we're starting to bring the temperature back to within our temperature danger zone or out of our temperature danger zone. And that's about 40 to 140 degrees. So if we can get out of that with the leftovers, then they'll be safe for the next meal and those kind of things. And especially if you're cooking a lot, that gives you some leeway to be able to do that and have a second meal with them safe as well. And this goes for these kind of meats. If you're cooking hot dogs, it's the same way. 165 degrees, that's a sausage just like this sausage here. Be sure that if you're doing hot dogs or any of those meals, you check those with a thermometer and don't just rely on your eyes and things as well. Okay? Hope you have a great 4th of July. Hope you learned a little bit about grilling. If we can ever help, let us know.